And I remember to this day being on phone calls with publishers, and we would kind of show them live and they'd start cussing. They're like, are you kidding me? Like I am losing $1 million a year to somebody that's like skirting under like somebody sticking their hand in the cash register and pulling it out. And we're like, yeah, like you didn't realize it in your normal analytics.
So today we had Dan Rua on the show, CEO of Admiral. Dan, welcome on the show.
Hey, Chris, it's great to be here.
So I know you have an extensive background, both as a founder and venture partner. Walk our team through your potted background, your rich story of how you got to where you are today, and what you're working on, the company you're building.
So personal background, I guess going way back, I was like one of the Apple II kids. Like I was lucky. My mom was in computers very early. And so we had like an Apple, first kids on the block with an Apple, and got very enamored with the Apple story. Went to school for computer engineering, went to IBM out of school. You know, at the time, IBM was kind of the Google of the time. Learned a bunch from, a really, innovative blue chip company, but really had my heart in startups. And so I got involved in the startup scene in Research Triangle, North Carolina. Helped some startups there. Grad school at UNC Chapel Hill, MBA, JD there. This was all kind of early commercial internet time. I still remember being at IBM and kind of, before browsers, using Gopher and just seeing a file on someone else's machine was kind of new and special. And then Mosaic comes along, and so you could tell something special was coming. Like I said, grad school on the law side focused on intellectual property and new media. On the business side, focused on startups and venture capital. Hooked up with a venture capital fund when I was coming out of there. Actually, it was interesting. Two things happened. I founded a software company with my brother at the time that he ended up running as CEO there in the Triangle. At the same time, I joined up with a venture fund that was a Silicon Valley fund called Draper Fisher Jurvetson, but they wanted to launch their first East Coast Draper fund. So moved up to DC, investing up and down the East Coast US, all early stage software media deals, did about 30 companies over 2 funds. And I was the guy responsible for the Southeast, and I got some quick wins, which allowed me to then launch a third fund focused just on the Southeast. Moved to Florida with that, did another 10 deals with that fund. And one of the last deals I did was in the music streaming space, a company called Grooveshark, which actually was the pioneer of streaming. It was kind of neat. When I was at Draper, I put the first money into Napster, which was kind of the first bookend of the music, digital music disruption. And then the other bookend was really Grooveshark. It was the shift from swapping of tracks to just streaming of tracks. And so anyway, that company grew very big, touched over 100 million users, 120 employees. We ended up selling that off to the labels, and I grabbed the product team and spun them out to create Admiral, who I'm with now. It was really because of some problems that we noticed at Grooveshark, right? So Grooveshark was a typical media company, ad supported, subscription supported, and we noticed something kind of, weighing down our revenue or chipping away at it. And as we dug in, we started to learn that music enthusiasts were some of the earliest ad block adopters. First, that hits your revenue, but then as you dig into it, you realize it's breaking all of your analytics. And so you thought you were looking at what your traffic was. You weren't really looking at what your traffic was, because blockers are breaking Google Analytics and Adobe and ComScore and everything. So we said, wait a second, like our users love us. Like we have, rabid fans who love Grooveshark. And so if they were taking a shot at us and impacting our revenue, then they were probably tearing up the internet as a whole. And so we said, first, kind of a stealth team. Let's just see if we can kind of size and solve that problem. We were stealth for about a year, and then we closed a seed round to really launch Admiral. First focus on size and solve ad block losses, and now it's growing into something much bigger we call visitor relationship management.
Beautiful. Walk us through what that is, visitor relationship management, and what Admiral does as part of its offer, its software.
Starting and building a successful company is so hard that you might as well go after really big things, because it's going to be hard either way. And so you might as well go after really big things. And so for us, it started with this really big problem of like, how is the internet supposed to pay for itself? And what are the ramifications if the internet can't pay for itself? If there's not some sort of a value exchange, just the internet that we've all grown up with starts to fade away. And so that was the big problem. In particular, what was going on was the traditional way of tracking people around the internet and shooting ads at them is really giving way to this kind of privacy, user empowerment driven internet. Massive wave that, is driving billions of dollars of impact around the world. Started with ad blockers. They were really tip of the spear. then data blockers, you've got paywall circumvention, you've got the browsers are killing off all the tracking cookies, you've got regulatory privacy consent that operates almost as kind of regulatory blockers. And so this traditional model of just like tracking people and shooting ads is giving way to something new and different. If publishers can't rely on tracking people around the internet, they have to build a one-to-one relationship with the visitor themselves, right? They can't rely on the fact that person was on a running site last week and therefore they can show them a running ad. Every site has to figure out whether you like running or not if you're going to have a long-term relationship. That is really MarTech, right? That is like, how do you stick your hand out and say hello and start a relationship with the visitor and grow that relationship into something special? That's not ad tech. And so we have billions of dollars of ad tech out there. Ad tech is really built to just shoot ads as efficiently as possible and track people as efficiently as possible. This is really something different. This is, again, how do you talk to your visitors? How do you communicate what you're trying to do as a content creator and why they should care about it so that there should be some value exchange? How do you go from that very first visit of a completely anonymous user that you have zero relationship with all the way up to maximum relationship, which is someone who maybe gave you an email address, maybe created an account, maybe they've donated, turned off their blocker, subscribed to you, downloaded your mobile app, follow you on social. Like all of that is like the deepest level of relationship a site might ultimately have with a visitor. And so how does a site get from here to there? And when you look at the internet going forward over the next decade, the sites that figure that out are going to define the internet, whereas the sites that keep trying to just track everybody and shoot ads are going to fall by the wayside. If you believe that, right, we kind of challenge ourselves. Like if we believe this wave is happening and this MarTech is needed, then who's supplying that, right? Like who's the MarTech players? Who is the HubSpot or Marketo or Salesforce? And the surprising thing is that there wasn't one. Like no publisher used HubSpot to talk to their visitors. They didn't use Salesforce to talk to their visitors. And so we went and created it, and that's what we call visitor relationship management.
First of all, I love that frame of building a business is one of the most difficult endeavors someone can take upon themselves. So you might as well pick a large growing market with a juicy problem to tackle. And yeah, if the publisher space was missing a HubSpot-like equivalent, that's an amazing white space to pursue. Talk us through the early days. How did you validate this? How did you grow it? How did you get your first users?
So number one, we started with an MVP, right? Let's just kind of create something. That was when we were kind of stealth before the seed round. And we first created a way to measure the impacts, again, because most of your normal analytics don't even pick up on it. And so we created this free tag for any website to put on their site, and we would show them stuff that they just weren't seeing. And I remember to this day being on phone calls with publishers, and we would kind of show them live, and they'd start cussing. They're like, "Are you kidding me? Like I am losing $1 million a year to somebody that's like skirting under like somebody sticking their hand in the cash register and pulling it out." And we're like, yeah, like you didn't realize it in your normal analytics. So step one was just sizing the problem. And we tell publishers, listen, whether you do anything else with us or not, you should at least have good data on what's going on. Then if you want help in how do you build that relationship with that visitor, whether it's got to do with ad block or anything else along the spectrum, we can do that for you. And as a matter of fact, that tag that you put on your page, you don't have to do any further coding. You've already done the coding necessary by sticking the ad on page, because everything else, you can just flick switches to turn it on. And so that first kind of revenue driver after the free tag in the early days was typically ad block recovery. And so they would flick a switch to turn on ad block recovery. That is really a marketing exercise in itself. It's not like a technology game. It's not like we're tricking blockers or sneaking ads past the blocker or something like that. That's just a long-term cat and mouse game. This is how do you talk to your visitors, right? Like NBC, for example, had a massive problem across all their sites. How do you talk to visitors about supporting content that they love, helping them understand that it takes money and time and resource to create the content that they're consuming, and get blockers off? All of a sudden revenue starts showing up for that publisher. You know, they've done years of work to make sure that their stack can deliver personalized ads that are relevant to the user, et cetera, and they can earn enough money to pay, keep the lights on. And so that stack is now opened up to start. That is was really, like I said, the MVP. And so we go to market with that. We get a lot of people installing the tag. We get a subset of those people moving into recovery. And then we roll into this broader VRM vision where it's not just about that one value exchange, where you say, please allow ads. There's a wide range of value exchanges, and people are not homogeneous, right? They are at different places on the spectrum. Like some people are okay turning off an ad blocker. Another person may be okay with giving you an email address. How do you build a robust journey and offer system to meet people where they're at, right? And maybe one offer doesn't get the job done, but a week later, a different offer is something that someone's willing to engage with. And so you need a robust system to do that very well. I mean, we talk a lot about you ultimately want a system that essentially engages the fewest number of times to achieve the highest number of conversions. And that just means you need an intelligent system. You're looking for propensity to convert. You're looking for when maybe is a certain article a high value article, right? Like we've built in automatic non-deterministic journeys that pick up on when something is surging, right? Well, when something is surging, that's the publisher has more value to exchange in that situation. And so instead of hitting somebody over the head with 10 messages, over time, a single message when something is important or valuable might drive your conversion, and then you gain relationship benefits for months.
So the free MVP tag was how you got this thing validated with your first users.
Yes.
So I imagine this leads to a direct sales conversation. After they've installed the tag and they're getting value, do you have a team that you mobilize to reach out to them and work them through a more formalized sales process? And did you pioneer this yourself in the beginning?
Yeah. So one thing to be clear, this is not a kind of primary product-led growth approach where the tag goes on and then everyone just shows up and starts, turning on recovery. Like the tag helps expose somebody to the problem so that our outbound motion can now have higher results. The other thing it does is it gives us visibility on who is worth spending time with, right? Because different sites have different levels of traffic. Different sites have different block rates, right? Like gaming technology gets absolutely crushed. We've had gaming sites over 60% block rate. Seeing that data, not just the publisher gets that data, but we're seeing the data. And so it can inform our go-to-market team to kind of go, fish where the fish are biting. So we build an outbound motion on that. To be honest, we were doing a little bit of everything. You kind of do that to get yourself to product market fit, doing a lot of kind of iteration with the customers on how are we doing? What are you looking for? Some of the things I talk about of a sophisticated journey system came from all of that. Because whereas you may start with a simple messaging system, immediately you're into publishers saying, well, I have subscribers. And so can we kind of avoid talking to a subscriber when they're logged in? Or I have these VIPs in my forums, right? Like an admin in my forum. That's a very valuable person. I want to give them kind of a unique experience versus the average experience. All those things flow into helping us really just nail the journey system in a way that, anyone else is years behind us.
After pioneering the initial sales motion, and if you were to chart out the flow, it would be going outbound with the lead magnet of installing the tag. Once they install it, what your best prospects are because it's right there in your software. You point an arrow to it and you underline it and you highlight it in effect for your sales team so they know where their time is best spent. And then you walk them through, I'm guessing, and it was you in the beginning, closing, selling these folks and
absolutely you have
driving
to.
home the value of signing on and using VRM. Today you have, it sounds like, formalized SDR, some people call them BDR or ADR roles, as well as AEs to facilitate this entire process now without as much of your involvement, it sounds.
The machine can't be dependent upon me, can't be dependent upon any one person. There's some other folks who started helping sell with me, and they're phenomenal. But if you're going to build a machine, you can't rely upon hiring phenomenal every single time, right? Like you have to know if we go hire, a half dozen ADRs or a half dozen AEs, that there's going to be a mix of skill sets in that group, mix of experience in that group. And so your machine has to be in a position to plug those people into the machine and they can succeed. And so that's what I think was a nice transition as we added on CRO. One thing that he brought in and he and I talked a lot about is that he actually didn't do more things, he did fewer things. As I mentioned, like, when we were trying to get the product market fit, we were doing some inbound and some outbound and some email and some phone. And he just brought in, he said, listen, the horse we're going to ride is outbound and we're going to work the phones. Yes, we will get to the rest of the things, but from a machine standpoint, from a repeatability standpoint, we're going to come in, we're going to do that. We're also going to make sure that all of our comp packages are aligned with those goals so that someone knows their number. And they know if they work hard to that number, they're going to put money in their pocket, right? So again, not magic, just blocking and tackling and kind of focused execution, which has played out very well for us.
Not magic, putting in the work, documenting the work, simplifying the work, and hiring for the roles. In short, what have been some of the channels that have worked since then for you, both offline or online, beyond the lead magnet outbound approach?
We could see for every one of our prospects whether they've addressed this problem yet or not, right? We could see publicly, right, going to their website with an ad blocker in our browser if all their ads are getting blown out. And so that was really interesting that, you can go to the world of prospects and you're not guessing whether they already have a CRM or what have you. It's like, no, I see right now blockers are attacking this page. They're crushing it. Here's, 75 ad calls that are getting blown up. And so when you do your outreach, you can give them kind of a, this is your brain and this is your brain on ad blockers, right? Like 2 pictures of what your site looks like. And so that was even before the tag, right? That was, you got this problem. By the way, we got this free tag. You should at least size it. And so I did forget to mention that, but I find it really interesting about our space, the ability to see if prospects are addressing this or not. So number one, you do that. Then you get the tag on. Then you have a report that you can bring back to them to get a demo going. And then you can do projections on that demo, right? You can say, listen, well, we already know your traffic level. We know your block rate levels. We know you're losing a certain amount of money. If you turn us on, you're going to all of a sudden make this amount of money. And so that was a nice motion. From a channel standpoint, again, focus on outbound. Events are actually a big part of our industry. The kind of media and particularly kind of the ad operations group, they're the ones who kind of run the ad stacks for media publishers. They have events like Ad Monsters and Beeler and Digiday where they compare best practices with each other. And so we leaned in hard there. I mean, we did that from day one. I remember when we had our coming out party to the world, it was at the IAB conference, which IAB is the largest association for this category. And events, I think, have always been a big part of what we're doing. I remember that first time we launched and nobody knew who we were, but I go to sit down. It happened twice in the conference that I sit down at a table and every one of the publishers sitting at the table was using Admiral. And it was just like, I sent back a message, through Slack to my team with a picture of like, do you guys realize like we are creating so much value for the category? When we create revenue, like we create jobs, like publishers are dealing with layoffs and closings and mergers and all that sort of stuff. And we literally create and save jobs. And so like people that we are seeing at these events are there because of money we create. Anyway, so events, big part of our strategy. Only now are we coming back to inbound in a heavy way. So 25 is going to be a big year for us with inbound. Really, we've always been very focused on kind of efficiency metrics, like from a SaaS efficiency standpoint. That's really what drove a very competitive growth round for us. We had some really good efficiency metrics. So we weren't ready to lean into the inbound where some of that stuff you can start spending before it starts to pay off for you until we got that growth round done. Now that we have the growth round done, we have some budgets we'll be putting in. We had been doing SEO all along. I think that, we're very good on that category. If you look at all keywords relevant for us, we do very well versus competition. We haven't spent any money on advertising. And so whether that is search advertising or social, we just haven't done any of it. And so I think that's a greenfield for us. I would say we've been doing email off and on. When I say email, not the prospecting email, but kind of email newsletters and just kind of a good cadence on that. So we'll be reinvesting into that. And then I think we'll also be putting some investment into just the conversion funnel aspect of the website. We've been heavy outbound, all the kind of above the funnel work on traffic, driving lead to sign up to demo. that's all been icing on the cake for us. Most everything we've been doing has been more outbound. But again, we're going to be investing in that in 25 so it becomes more than just icing on the cake.
I love the idea of building the better lead list by looking into whether or not they're using an alternate provider today.
Yeah.
A lot of companies skip this step, and because of it, they're deploying outbound to leads that are not as qualified, i.e., wasting their time, their budget, their resources.
Yes.
Where, just to draw a comparison, if you're selling HR software, you could check the site to see if they have ATS already on their source code.
Yes.
If you're selling, just random example, into restaurants for reservation software, you can see if they already have that on their site. You can even use AI to infer this by looking at their source code and prompting ChatGPT, Claude, or Grok to figure this out. So super savvy move, because then you could personalize this outreach for relevance as well. I noticed that you're not actually using anything along these lines on your site. Are you open to seeing why we can recover more revenue for you? Yeah, that must have been a very gratifying moment, being with 20 different publishers all saying they're running your software. For you and the team. So that's what every founder or head of growth aspires to, that exact conversation. This episode is brought to you by Convert.ai. Convert.ai helps B2B SaaS and services hit their growth records. For the past decade, they've helped companies from YC, A16Z, seed, Series A stage companies, all the way up to the likes of BitGo, Adecco, Microsoft, SEMrush, Coke, hit growth records by handling their end-to-end demand generation. If you're interested in working with a partner that handles your end-to-end demand generation and actually works on a performance basis, putting their skin in the game to help your company grow, get in touch. The domain name is Convert.ai, and the link to book is convert.ai/book. With that out of the way, let's move on to the show.
I will amplify one of the things you were saying there about finding stuff on site. We started doing that more manually, right? We could go to any website we want and pull up Dev Console and just see what's going on ad-wise. But to your point, you can turn that into a scalable machine, right? Whether it's SimilarWeb or built with or what have you, you can use that to look for competitor software across swaths of sites. And then if you can identify, maybe it's a signature that the SimilarWeb hasn't figured out yet. Like I use public www, and I'll just come up with my own signatures and pick up on either are they using something that we're after, or if I'm just going after specific competitors, I can pick up a signature on that competitor and immediately pull a list, drive that over to the ADR team, and they can go outbound.
Another question that I have, and this is just going back through your past work history and your successes, or the successes you've been involved in since you've invested in a number of startups. We were talking about Auction Rover. As the managing partner of Inflection, walk me through the lesson there for founders or for heads of growth or marketing, as far as why it pays off to be resourceful and creative.
And so that was actually before Inflection. So Inflection was my third fund. That was my Draper fund, and it was my first big win. And so it's always near and dear to my heart. So this entrepreneur named Scott Wingo in Research Triangle, he's an absolute legend in the Triangle. At the time, I think he had just exited a kind of install software company that he built, and I think he sold it for maybe 14 million or something like that. And I just went and sat on his doorstep, and I was just like, Scott, what are you doing next? We'd love to help fund you and kind of take this national, because when he did the prior thing, that was more of a bootstrap deal. It wasn't like a venture-backed deal. And so this was actually in the early days of the internet and early days of auctions, to where eBay was not the behemoth. There were a bunch of auction sites. And so it was unclear kind of how to, if you wanted to sell product, which auctions to put it on, how to handle pricing, how to handle the descriptions that are in the for the items. And so Auction Rover built all of this software of how sellers would sell across channels. And it was just a rocket shot. It was an absolute rocket shot. I think we sold it for 10x plus in like 18 months. And the entrepreneur, he was just so good. It sells in. Ultimately, Yahoo was the owner. And Yahoo ultimately kind of just loses interest in the auction category. And so they're not as interested in that. And Scott finds a way to say, hey, listen, how about I just buy it back out of Yahoo and, we'll go run it. You don't seem to be very excited. And so damn if he doesn't find a way to buy it back out for a song. And go do it again, blows it up, takes it public for $1 billion plus, changed the name. It's called Channel Advisor. And again, it was really this idea of how do sellers sell across channels. And now it wasn't just about auctions. It's also selling across Amazon and mix of other sites. And it just became a behemoth in the e-commerce category. He runs that for a while, then moves into kind of a chairman role. Since then, launched another company called Spiffy, which is kind of a tech-enabled service around car products. That's a great example where when he was doing Channel Advisor, he tells me, hey, listen, I invested in like this local car wash. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're like a tech guy. What are you investing in a car wash? And eventually he realizes like these car wash, like this should be a tech-enabled service where you just like schedule a car wash and they'll like come to your house or they'll come to your office and they'll just like do the car wash and it's all paid through the phone and all that sort of stuff. So he takes Spiffy nationwide. That's another big win for him. To your point of kind of lessons learned, one of my favorite things about Scott, he was just tenacious. I mean, maybe he's gotten a little more professional and buttoned up in his old age, but I remember, when he wanted to do a partnership with someone or he wanted to win a big deal, like eBay, for example, was someone he needed a big deal with in the early days. He would go and flood their lawn with like election signs, but they were auction rover signs. And so when the employees are like walking in the morning, they're like, what the hell is this auction rover? Like we got signs all over our lawn. And like he would get a phone call from somebody, that he wanted to do business with. And so he did that multiple times. I remember another case where I think one of the big cooking shows was coming into Research Triangle. Everyone goes over there to go check out the show. And on national TV, you look at them doing the cooking stuff and there's a bunch of auction rover signs like behind the kitchen, kind of no shame, doing whatever you have to do to get noticed by the people you want to do deals with. I think he also was just very shrewd in identifying who he wanted partnerships with, right? Not just kind of taking the world as it comes. It's like doing this is going to be valuable. I think he's also done it in relation to, he became a resource for kind of the stock market on e-commerce topics. People who are following Amazon or eBay but are looking for third-party data on them. He was very strategic about kind of being a resource to analysts, which then got him tons of earned media and the company as well.
I love the approach of just 11 out of 10 intensity, being shameless, fostering amazing relationships, being a good resource. That guy's going to have a killer memoir. Appreciate you sharing that. I could go on and on with these questions. I think we'll just have to get you back on the show at some point, Dan. But just to close us out, we can do a very rapid round of quick shot fire questions just to get your initial takes on just a handful of questions here.
That sounds good. Chris, I would like to steal 60 seconds if I can. One other entrepreneur story that really has impacted me, and I look for it in other entrepreneurs, and that is someone I backed with the Inflection Fund, entrepreneur named Ted Murphy out of Orlando. Ted originally started a company called Paper Post, and we seeded that company, and it was the first influencer marketing company. It was like bloggers, building relationships with brands, and this was early, like 2006 maybe. And it was absolute sacrilege that a blogger would ever get paid for writing about a topic. And I remember TechCrunch just went to war on it and all that sort of stuff. And Ted Murphy was held up as some sort of a evil devil person for bringing money into the equation. And Ted just believed in the fact that everyone has something to contribute to the world, right? They have expertise to share or style or what have you. And there should be a way for them to earn and build a business out of what it is that they know. And so anyway, it ended up ultimately changing the name to IZEA and growing. IZEA is really the pioneer of influencer marketing that now has grown into a beast of a category. And the whole world has turned 180 degrees on that topic, right? Like brands, agencies are just pouring money into the category. And so the lesson for me on that was just an entrepreneur that, it's so often that an entrepreneur can get negative feedback and they're very attuned to feedback. And so they pivot and change direction because someone doesn't like what they're doing, versus he had a very clear vision of what was possible to empower creators and stuck to his vision over time and really changed the industry as a result.
Super amazing story. I think most founders or executives will get vilified at some point of their growth stage. And in this case, I think before the recording, you mentioned that he was getting attacked and vilified by someone very prominent in the publication industry. And A lot of people would have folded to that. They just would have said, all right, I'll move on. I'll give in. I'll release a public apology. This guy stuck to his guns. He was resilient. He had a vision and ruthlessly stuck to it in the face of a mob attack, including prominent people, like you said. So that's a lesson anyone can take away. One of the most important ones. If you have conviction, stick to that conviction, right? As a founder, growth, revenue, sales, you're going to have so many things blow up in your face, where conviction is the one path, the one road to working around a problem, or you could say the foundation, the baseline to working around a problem, if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I think it both keeps you as a founder sharp because you are testing yourself against all this criticism and testing your vision. And so his vision about content creators having something to bring to the world, and probably wrapping himself in the idea that, like, if I succeed at this, like, these people, their families will be better off by being able to do this, right? And so it helps you find a mission that then empowers your entire organization of why everybody shows up to work every day, because there's a mission going on, which is bigger than any of us. And I think that really helped.
100%. All that out of the way, once again, can keep going, but I think we'll just need to bring you back on the show. I just want to close out with a very rapid fire series of questions. No wrong answers. First thought, best thought.
Got it.
If you were stripped of all your client acquisition pipeline, it all fell wayside, and you had to rebuild your sales system, your marketing engine today, what first immediate steps would you take to rebuilding your marketing sales leads?
I would probably go right to the thing I mentioned about kind of spidering the net to understand what sites are doing, which allows you to then build prospect lists in the hundreds or thousands, so that then you can go at them at scale.
Favorite app or tool, resource, community, person, anything that you've that has been helpful for you to grow your business?
I'll probably give two from a community standpoint. Beeler Tech, created by Rob Beeler. Rob Beeler is really, whether it's you call it the influencer or just kind of the MC of the industry, the media publishing industry. That's been a great community. He does a great job with many events. And from a tool standpoint, it's a little hackerish, but that public www.com tool, I found it early on. It's not the most polished or sexy tool, but it's just really good when I'm trying to come up with a signature to identify prospects or to track my competitors and what does their installed base look like. It's just been a really nifty tool to use.
Beautiful. Reflecting on your early career, what one single piece of advice would you have given yourself, or would you give yourself, that would save you months or even years of effort?
Let's see. Maybe that simplicity that we brought into the machine. Like I said, in the early days, I think we were probably trying a little bit of everything, because you feel like you need to have some inbound happening and you feel like you need to have some ABM happening, and maybe just take comfort in picking one or two and just lean into that. And there will be time to come back to the other things. So maybe not try everything at once, but maybe go stepwise.
Favorite way to re-energize or unwind from the founder day-to-day grind?
Running. So my wife and I do this, do what's called streak running, which is you do at least a mile a day for as many days in a row as possible. And we started that a while back, and it has been phenomenal. It's the best habit creation tool I've ever had, because once that streak starts, well, it just gets bigger and bigger. And so the weight on breaking the streak is bigger and bigger. So anyway, so running allows kind of get away from it all.
What's your streak count right now? Do you track it?
Yes. Yeah. So my wife and I have the same streak, which is pretty unique, where I think we're either number one or two in the world at 11 years right now of every day. Whether you're traveling or you're in the hospital or what have you, you got to find a way to do at least a mile a day.
You've been running a mile a day every day of the year for 11 years?
Yeah. Yeah. But to be clear,
Wow.
there
You almost didn't even mention that. I had to get it out of you. Wow.
it's phenomenal. We and some of my entrepreneurs have started to do it themselves. And so
Yep.
Ted Murphy that I mentioned, he's got a streak that I think is maybe 9 or 10 years as well. But to be clear, there's a guy out there named the Raven. He's nicknamed the Raven. He's coming up on his 50th year straight. Anyway, so there's some special people out there.
What attribute or attributes do you look for in potential teams or founders that you're looking to invest in? Is this one of them? There's just the fact that they do something outside of work that involves lifting weights or running.
I mean, that definitely helps, in a conversation where they have, what is that, spiky thing that they do that's unique versus other people? It definitely makes for interesting people. I'd probably say that, I have a bias towards people who see both sides of the equation on things, and so I try to ferret that out a bit when we're talking. I will even ask questions back to elementary school and stuff like that to just try to get at a little bit of the psychology of, the world is never all rosy or all terrible. Your strengths are often your weaknesses. And so this just kind of awareness of the yin and yang of life is probably something I look for in people, at least so that we can work well together. Because I definitely am always kind of thinking about the spectrum, and it's tough if people are just like running off in a direction, and you're having to like pull them back versus they innately understand the same give and take.
So some self-awareness and external awareness in a way, awareness of themselves and their external landscape.
It also shows itself when you say kind of self-aware, it also shows itself in things like humility and gratitude and things like that, which aren't so much about execution pros and cons. It's more culturally, right? Like are we going to be a fit? Because you have to understand that when things go well, yes, you absolutely busted your butt for it to go well, but also some things fell your way. And so kind of always being able to have some gratitude is a nice way to stay balanced.
I love it. Last couple questions here. Is there a question you ask yourself when you find that you're stuck and gives you fresh perspective to get unstuck while working through a difficult problem? Any question or mental frames that you default to working through challenges?
I probably am just, I mean, I don't know if it's so much a frame as it is, I'm a big chess player. And so I'm probably always, I feel like I always have a chess game in my head on all aspects, whether it is how we're dealing with a competitor or what have you. And so maybe the questions of, am I over indexing for near term or over indexing for long term versus, am I, again, from a chess game standpoint, achieving a little bit of both.
That's an amazing frame. We have not gotten that one yet. Yeah, also a chess player.
All right, we got to connect on chess.com.
I'm game. I'm game. Watch out. This goes way back, but national high school reigning champ team, chess team. We got first place 3 years and second place the fourth year, but we don't talk about that year.
Okay,
Um,
right.
so
Right.
no,
Nice.
I'm absolutely game for that.
I think it's a tremendous, just from an entrepreneur standpoint, I think it's a tremendous hobby because it does just force you to think in ways that your mind doesn't always get challenged that way.
So agree. And I'm glad that Queen's Gambit show put chess back on the map. It made it cool again. I don't know if it was ever cool, but now it's more cool than it's ever been, which is great.
Yes.
Dan, anything else you would like to leave our audience with? It's just a community of folks charged with growing their B2B companies with lead commits or quotas. Any last thing that you would like to close out with here?
I mean, I'm going back to just kind of doing big things. Like I would just try to always look for the bigger mission and what you are doing. There's a book that we read as kind of a book club here at the company, because we call our customer success customer love. And so we have this extraness in our, how much we love our customer. And we read this book called Winning on Purpose. And it was just this idea of just remembering what your purpose is. It was written by the guy that did Net Promoter Score, and he kind of identified there's this kind of other factor in play that influences Net Promoter Score, and it's this idea that your success, you end up embodying that your success is driven by your customer success. And to the degree that you can set yourself up in that way, that you are focused on your customer success. He gives all kinds of examples of a cable repair guy that helps someone fix their flat tire. It's not helping in their cable repair business, but it speaks to they care about the customer's happiness and success. Anyway, so that infuses everything we do. I would encourage people maybe to read that book. Again, it's Winning on Purpose, but find ways to align yourself on your customer success. Like our mission is saving the free internet one publisher at a time. And so we talk about this with every new hire and every team summit about what does that even mean, right? Like what is one publisher at a time? What are we saving the free internet from? That just helps ground you and give everyone a bigger reason to wake up every day.
So good. On that note, can't think of anything else to one up that remark. So, Dan, is there anywhere you would like to direct people to where they can find out more about you, or any places you would like to point people to?
Yeah, definitely. So any media publisher should be sizing these problems and considering a VRM system. We are at getadmiral.com, GETADMIRAL.com. And likewise, whether it is potential customers or partners or entrepreneurs, just looking to bounce ideas. I am Dan at getadmiral.com. I think because of my investing, in addition to what I do with Admiral, I just want to help entrepreneurs succeed. And so, welcome kicking around ideas.
Dan, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Chris.